Hello, it's me, Arden Lee, and today I want to talk about how to heal from a broken heart. First, if you have not already, do subscribe to my channel because I would love to stay on your mind and on your feed, and I'd love to connect with you. So, do leave comments. Let me know what you want to hear about. Let me know if this is helpful for you, um, and I'd love to stay connected. So, without further ado, let me get to the topic at hand here, which is how to heal from a broken heart. Wow, that's a big one, right? How can I possibly sum up what is important about that, and what is an effective method to deal with that in just a short YouTube video. But I think I can get to what I feel is the real essence of healing from a broken heart, from a bad relationship, from an abandonment, a betrayal. And I'm going to try and sum that up today in a way that is helpful. My thought is that the worst thing that happens to us when someone breaks our heart is actually not so much in the externals of our situation, though those can certainly be very painful, be very difficult to deal with, and there can certainly be there can be many logistical difficulties about the end of a relationship. But really the worst thing that happens to us, I believe, is that the person in question makes us feel or think certain things about our worth, our self-worth in particular, our ability to discern for ourselves, our ability to trust. The thing about trust is that we can't trust anyone else until we trust ourselves. Because, and that's not, I'm not just saying that like, oh, you can't love another person before you love yourself. It's really, when you think about it, you have to be able to trust your own judgment to know who to trust. So if you can't trust yourself to know who to trust, then you really can't trust anyone at all. You can try, you can say, I'm going to give you my trust, you can take that leap of faith, but it's trust that therefore is blind and is not grounded in the reality of knowing and trusting yourself to be a good judge of character. So when someone breaks your heart, sometimes the worst thing that happens is the thing that you think to yourself afterwards, even more so than losing the person, more so than losing the externals of the relationship or everything that you may have to deal with as a result. Oftentimes the worst thing that happens to us is we say, well, if this person left me, clearly I'm not worthy of the kind of love that I thought I was, because if they didn't believe I was, then maybe I'm really not, especially if they were someone that I really loved, who I put a lot of faith into. If they don't, there was someone I liked, someone I trusted, someone I loved with all my heart, and if they didn't love me back, maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was. And then of course on top of that, there's also like, wow, I chose to enter a relationship with this person, or I at least chose to get my hopes up. I chose to put some trust in this person, and maybe I'm not sure that I can trust myself because clearly I couldn't trust them. So I can't trust myself to know who to trust. This is some of the most difficult part of healing from a broken heart, in my opinion. There is also, of course, some other realities too. There are some very chemical realities to healing from a broken heart. If you're someone who has been in a relationship with a person and they suddenly leave your life, you all of a sudden have this void. And it's not just about the time and space that you want to fill with other things to do, although that's a big factor in it as well. But there are so many chemicals that our brains release, when we're in love. There's dopamine, there's oxytocin, there's phenylethylamine, there's all of these, these things that give us that high of being in love, that thing, and serotonin as well, that our happiness drug, like all that can come to us from our relationships. It's kind of ironic, I've joked before that love ought to be regulated by the DEA. I don't really believe that because, I don't trust the government very much, but at all at this point, given what's happening lately. But considering considering how many substances, how many chemicals our brains are literally under the influence of when we're in relationship, when we fall in love. It's certainly something to take into consideration. So addressing the external sometimes is like going through a detox, and sometimes it's best to just realize and recognize that that you are in a detox, and that what needs to happen next is that you need to isolate yourself and seek support from friends and family while your body literally gets used to those new levels of the chemicals that are being released in your brain, or finding other places to source those chemicals from. For example, if you're low on dopamine, because dopamine is that thing that says, oh, I'm excited, I want to do this, I have a desire to do something, right? If you're with a lover that you feel incredibly passionate about, you probably had a lot of dopamine spikes saying, oh my gosh, I want this, I want to be with you, I'm so looking forward to our time together. Then it's important to start scheduling other things that you're looking forward to. Maybe something like a vacation, maybe something like taking that art class or that writing class that you never allowed yourself to take before because you were so involved in that relationship. Start to find things that you can really look forward to that don't necessarily depend on another person, certainly not a person that you're in a relationship with, certainly not someone that you're dating for right now. Really focus on who is dependable in your life, and make plans going forward that you're going to be excited about. Also, serotonin, our serotonin levels are helped when we connect with our loved ones. We connect with people that are there to support us. Taking that time to really say, wow, who are the friends that that I maybe don't see as much, or didn't see as much when I was in the relationship this whole time? Who are the family members that I haven't connected with in a while? Maybe I talk to my parents or my mom and dad pretty often, but how about like some of my cousins, or the people who are my family, who are my blood, that maybe I only see them once a year at family reunions, but maybe now is the time to actually develop some stronger relationships, some stronger bonds with them. What's something fun that I could do, in that regard? At least anyway, if you're not, if those branches of your family are not toxic or politically opposed to you. You don't want to be around people who are not going to help your healing at that point in time. You just want to find those people where you have those warm, friendly and familial connections that are supportive of you, but maybe that you haven't been giving as much attention to since you've been in your relationship. Also, getting a pet is a really great way to stimulate your oxytocin. Oxytocin is that chemical that's about bonding and warm fuzzies. So when Virgil officially moved into with me in my apartment, he was my family's cat before, so he was living with my parents, and when he officially moved in with me was right after a very difficult breakup that I had, and I was like, I know I'm gonna need support, and what better than a nice warm furry cat, and that's how we came to live in the same apartment together, me and Virgil. He's currently over there on the floor licking his butt. Virgil, I'm talking about you. Moving on. So those are some of the things that you can immediately start to do to sort of mitigate or ameliorate the effects that the chemical withdrawal has on your body. And I'm a big believer in things like detoxes and rehabs. I have not been to a rehab for any kind of substance abuse myself, because that's not where my particular demons lie. But I'm a big fan of when something traumatic happens, or when there is something I just need to get out of my system. I believe in taking a big break and just saying, like, this is gonna suck for a couple weeks. How do I get to a place where my body, like my adrenaline levels are coming back down, where I'm not waking up and feeling the pain of that abandonment or that betrayal all over again, because I wake up and you do that thing where it's like you fall asleep and then you wake up and you have this sense of dread, like you don't know what's wrong yet, but you're like, something bad happened, something that's not the same as it was before, and you're like, oh right, I got dumped, right, I'm waking back up into this world where I don't have my partner anymore, and it sucks so hard. So sometimes the best thing to do, if you can, is just go and either stay at a friend's house, stay at a family's house, something preferably away from all the noise, something kind of peaceful. If you can be in nature, that's something that's really, really, really helpful. because it just does get all that, like all those reactions. It's kind of like your body is in this state of stress, and it just needs to fall away. It just needs to. It's like having tinnitus. It's like having that ringing in your ears, and you just need to be somewhere where it's silent, so it can kind of all just process. That's one of the most helpful things in my opinion. But really, as I said in the beginning, one of the most insidious things is the ways that a breakup will damage your own self-worth and damage your own self-esteem. I had, a whole ton of, until a couple of years ago, when I really very deliberately went down this path of healing for myself. I had a ton of breakups that had happened to me in the past that I was, that had accumulated, that I really hadn't dealt with any of it. So every new relationship I was going into, I was convinced that part of me was unacceptable and unworthy based on, the reasons I'd been broken up with before, until when I was in my last relationship, I was literally like, I was just like this like sex bot, I was like this robot who just cooked and cleaned and sexually performed and held great conversation and whatever, and I, at the time I looked at it and I embraced it. I thought this meant that I was safe. I had this whole like geisha archetype that I was really leaning into, and I was inspired by the fantasy elements of that at the time. But really, the truth is, I was just editing out all of my humanity because I was disgusted with my humanity. Those are all the reasons that I had been rejected before, and I didn't want to deal with them. I didn't want to embrace those parts of myself. So yeah, like I said in my dating book that I wrote at the time, I threw out all my sweatpants. I didn't want to be that person. I don't want to be seen for my wholeness. And I thought that, based on all the reasons I've been broken up with before, and based on all the ways that I've been, abused and gaslighted out of my full emotional expression, I really thought that the safest thing for me to do was to just edit that out. And it wasn't even just about like any parts of me that I thought were bad or whatever. It was like things that I thought like weren't cool or whatever, kinds of music that I liked that I didn't think my partners would like, or things I was interested in that I didn't think were worthy of conversation necessarily, or or even just parts of me that I didn't feel were especially pleasing or especially convenient. Like I would make dinner for a partner, and then I would just like I'd wait till the next day to do all the dishes or whatever. I didn't let them see. I didn't like. It's not like I was like, hey, let's do the dishes now. Like, can you help me out here? I'll wash and you dry or whatever. It was like, no, that's not convenient for you. So I'm just gonna save that, and I'm gonna do the dishes when you're not around, so you don't have to be exposed to that or whatever. Again, throwing out my sweatpants, being like, I don't want like a Netflix and chill kind of relationship. And to be fair, that is what I was choosing at the time, but there were some reasons that I was choosing that weren't all necessarily healthy. So because I had not dealt with all that, it's like each relationship that happened, I cut off another part of myself and shoved that to the side. If you're in the shamanism communities at all, you might recognize that as a shamanic soul retrieval. A soul retrieval is essentially the things that helps you get back all of those parts of yourself, as utilized in the shamanic communities anyway. There are certainly a lot of other modalities that deal with the same thing, using different methods and different language around it. So if you have been broken up with and you're healing from a broken heart right now, the worst thing that you can do is to say, what's the reason I was broken up with, and how can I never be that thing ever again? Because that's really how we start fitting ourselves into these weird skins or boxes that we don't really fit into, and we start attracting people who it's like sometimes our relationships get like, it's like we start attracting people who agree with us, who agree that like, no, you're not lovable for all that you are. You're only lovable for what you can do for me. And even though on the surface, we may think in our minds like, I'll be more attractive if you don't see these dorky parts of me. I'll be more attractive if I actively work on doing things for you. I mean, shit, I was a service submissive for the longest time. I was in the BDSM scene, and I chose that identity too because it made me feel safer in my relationships. If I know everything that you want me to do, then I can just do it and you won't ever leave me. And unfortunately, I kept attracting people who kept leaving me because deep down, I believed clearly, if I believed that I had to do a bunch of things in order to not be abandoned, what I actually believed was that I was worthy of abandonment, was that I deserved abandonment if I wasn't doing all those things. And so I attracted people who also thought that it was okay to abandon me. So that really, in healing from a broken heart, I think the best thing to do is be around people who remind you of your self-worth, who remind you how much you are worth, and remember that, you know, your empirical data only goes so far. This is what I had to learn from myself. People would say to me, Arden, you're worthy of relationship just as you are. You don't have to try so hard. And I would say, I have empirical data that state otherwise. Look at how many times I've been broken up with. Look at how many times I've had my heart broken. Look how many times I've been abandoned. I've been betrayed. I've been passed over. And the truth was that the whole time, I simply wasn't choosing people who really loved me, because I believed I was acting in ways that betrayed that I believed that I was actually not worthy of love just as I was, that I had to plea bargain to be worthy of it. So I really encourage you to, when you are healing from a broken heart, go be around those people who really affirm to you how amazing you are, and really step into your creative power, and be around those people who maybe they're just friends for right now, but maybe they can really help you and support you and remind you of all the reasons that you are worthy of love. And eventually, when you get to that place where you realize your true sovereignty and your true power, you're going to get to that place where someone's going to either reject you or abandon you, quote unquote, and you're going to say, like, wow, it sucks for you that you couldn't see how amazing I am. And that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with how deeply you are meeting yourself. And if you can't see this or receive this, then that's on you. And now I'm at a place where I look back at a lot of my relationships and I'm like, wow, so many people who I thought were rejecting me or abandoning me just really couldn't handle being loved in the way that I want to love someone. They didn't think that they were worthy of it, so they pushed me away because they couldn't handle that, because it wasn't in alignment with them. And in a weird way, we were kind of both broken people attracting each other. So I've worked on myself. I've worked on stepping into my wholeness, and it's a lot better. It's so much better, and it's so much more relaxing too. It's just way better. So if you are suffering from a broken heart right now, please really check in with your beliefs about yourself and your self-worth, and know that you don't have to do anything other than just be your fullest expression of yourself in order to be lovable. The right person is still going to love you when you're wearing sweatpants. The right person is still going to, the right person is going to listen when you have negative emotions crop up. The right person is going to want to understand your needs and your boundaries. They're not going to make you distance yourself from those things in order to earn their love. That's something that a narcissist does. We don't want relationships with narcissists because those people need to heal themselves, and they need to not go around damaging other people. So, although of course, as we all know, they're hurting very deeply themselves. So, I hope this was helpful to you, and thank you for listening. And if you're out there, I hope you feel better.